Good morning, the 7th of January 2025. 2025. It is not that outrageous that one calls it 24. We're not machines either. But anyway, just to tell you the bad news with the Russian-Ukraine war. Russia has caused, or the war has caused, 1,670 deaths yesterday. So when I made my video yesterday, between that and nightfall, over 1,000 people had died, mainly Ukrainian soldiers. Russia is bombarding all their shelling capabilities, their artillery. They're destroyed most of their ammunition depots. And Russia has taken over a lithium mine in Donbass. It's a place, now it's Shevchenko, I think it is. I tend to stay away from these names because you're not going to remember them. Shevchenko, it's in the Donbass in eastern Ukraine. And this is a massive mine of lithium. It's roughly 2.2% of the world's lithium is stored in it. And it's capable of open cast mining. So it'll tell you a lot of the Ukraine war was over resources. And great efforts should have been made to prevent the war, because once the war broke out, it was obvious Russia was going to grab these resources. And it's also quite obvious that the Bidens were in there to grab the fuel or the oil in it, even though they knew nothing about it. And BlackRock and Vanguard and all these investment houses were all poised to grab what was in Ukraine. Doesn't look very good now. I can't see Putin giving anything back, or even with Trump or anything else. And now the North Korean are in there. North Korean troops are in there. I don't know how much, but Putin has met the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and he's no great shakes. But it's thought likely that Putin will give North Korea nuclear weapons. And this is panicking the Americans. But then the Biden administration has only 13 days, by my counting, to run. So I don't think they're going to be able to do much, but it must really gall them to see this. It is unbelievably cruel and unbelievably sad. I wouldn't at all doubt that since I started making this video, if 25 Ukrainians have been killed, if it's anything like yesterday, it'll be that bad. And it's a very rough situation. Now, I also see there that the African countries, they call them the Sahel, they're really sub-Saharan Africa. They're a belt of countries that come across from Ethiopia right across to the Atlantic at Nigeria, underneath the Sahara, where it's better land, a bit better. And they have now ousted the French and all of the other troops out. The French have lost all of the wealth they had, all the gold, all the oil, all the uranium and all of that. They'll have to buy it if they get it at all. And the thing is that the Russians and the Chinese are edging in there in a sort of a non-confrontational way. So that's a huge loss to the West and a huge loss to Europe. And it's a huge loss to American involvement overseas. They always like to have a leg in all these countries, and they've been put out. And I believe the reason they're being put out is that the Russians and Chinese are steering the governments in these countries along. Long ago, you'd have a big baluba like Idi Amin, and he'd be out of control and he'd do mad things and kill people and everything. But the Russians and Chinese are explaining to them how to keep the lid on the pot, how to keep ticking over, and how to build up their countries. And this is why you're not seeing counter coups. Moreover, I have no doubt that any Islamic or other terrorists, as they call them, or military people trying to attack these countries now will be murdered out of the face. There'll be nothing, just the Russian Wagner or whoever it is, probably the Russian troops with the local troops, will murder them out of the face so that they'll be just annihilated on the ground. They'll just spot them from satellites. There'll be very little violence in sub-Saharan Africa. And this gives weight to the theory that the Americans are always trying to cause trouble. They want permanent war in these countries, and they want permanent enemies. In Syria, it's the ISIS, the dregs of the ISIS, or an offshoot of ISIS, which has been financed and armed by America to go in and take over Syria to leave it more suitable for the Israelis to take part of it. And how that will play out, I do not know. It's not good. The Americans are still there. So that's really the news I have on that war front, and it's very, very sad. It is extremely sad. I mean, when we think of our own problems, and to think that if I was here in eastern Ukraine now, that 1,600 soldiers would have been lying dead around the fields. It is really unbelievable. And the Russians are neutralizing their entire missile attacks and their aircraft and everything. All of the air support is moving in favor of Russia. So it's unbelievable stuff. Whatever will happen when Trump gets in, will he be able to stop it? I can't tell you. I don't think Putin's going to give back anything. And the only thing I don't understand is, I'm sure at this stage they could have taken out the Ukrainian government and all of its members, decapitated. Not that I'm advocating that now, but they could have, and I don't know why. I mean, Ukraine can take a general, can kill a general who was over the Biolabs in Ukraine, investigating them in the middle of Moscow. And while I'm on that, remember that there's excellent proven evidence that that America, in conjunction with Ukraine, was using biolabs, using chemical weapons, and using all kinds of stuff like COVID manufacture and all of that inside of Ukraine, because it was a safe place for the Americans. It was not a safe place for the local population that didn't care about them, but they had a general investigating it, and they managed to take him out. So clearly somebody knew that he was going to cause trouble. I have no doubt there was a massive amount of these chemical laboratories being run on a joint Ukraine basis with the United States. Anyway, that's really the basis of that, and I think it's long enough now. In 7 minutes we'll see you back.